Hi there! In today's video, I'm going to be sharing another family recipe that's so special to us. My mother-in-law has passed this recipe down and it's one of our favorites. Today we're going to be making potato buns, and it's just like the name implies. It's a soft, pillowy roll that has potato flavor, actually from using some leftover mashed potatoes. Anytime I'm making a recipe that calls for yeast, I always proof my yeast first. I've been down that road too many times where I put it in and have high hopes and then it never rises like it's supposed to, and I've wasted all those ingredients. So for today's recipe, we're going to start with a half a cup of hot water, and then it calls for 2 packages of yeast. I buy my yeast in bulk, and one package is 2 1/4 teaspoons. So we're going to do 4 1/2. Sometimes my daughter doesn't really like math, and I try to encourage her. That was pretty simple, but I try to encourage her that there are times in life when she will use that multiplication and dividing. So there's a simple way to encourage your kids to do their math. So we just mix our yeast with some warm water, not too hot, but not too cold either. I'm not actually sure what the proper temperatures. I think it's like 110, maybe 105. 110 might be too hot. So I mix this and let it dissolve a little bit. I'm already seeing some bubbles, so that's a good sign. And then what I like to do is add just a touch of sugar, and that will feed the yeast. And as soon as yeast has some sugar, it will start to grow. So I just give it maybe like 1/4 teaspoon in there, and then we'll let that set for maybe 5 minutes or so, and when we come back it should have grown in size. If it has, then you know your yeast is good. If it's not grown in size, it's a sign that maybe your yeast isn't good or something isn't quite right, and that's why I like to proof it, because at that point you can start over and you haven't really wasted much besides your yeast. So let's take a good look here. There are some bubbles forming, and we're at about half a cup. That's all we should be at. So we'll come back in a few minutes and check its growth. So it's only been a few minutes. I didn't time it or anything, but probably 5 or so minutes, and we're up to at least 3/4, just over 3/4 of a cup now. So that is great. So I know my yeast is good, and I'm gonna go ahead and start my recipe now and not worry about it flopping. That's the worst, when you work so hard for something and then it fails. That's just so disappointing. So, okay, this says to add all of the ingredients together except the flour, and then pour over the flour and mix good. I don't really do it that way. I think we'll add half of the flour, the other ingredients, and then half of the flour, because I have a big mixer here, so it should work well. So we need 6 cups of flour. So we'll do 3 cups for now. Okay, so we're going to do 3 eggs. Thank goodness I have 3 eggs. That's exactly what I have. Oh, so often I go to make a recipe and I just assume that I have what I need, and I'm surprised to find out I don't. Does that happen to anybody else? I can't really blame my kids. Sometimes it, you know, someone made an egg or made eggs a couple days in a row and I didn't realize it, but a lot of times it's just my own memory. I just forget what I have. So, okay, 3 eggs, do half a cup of mashed potatoes. I just love that this is part of the recipe. How often do you have leftover mashed potatoes and it's like, well, it's not really enough to do anything with? Give this recipe a try. It's so good, so good. Okay, that just about does it for our mashed potatoes that were left over. And 3/4 of a cup of sugar. I am an eyeballer. Like, I don't have a 3/4 cup measure. cup of butter, softened, of course. Mix that for us. I'll use this rubber scraper from the yeast to get the rest of that off. It's good, and I'm going to go ahead and start mixing it with my regular paddle mixer, and then we'll add, or I'll switch to the dough hook when I add the rest of the flour, but I want to make sure the eggs and butter is all blended together. Okay, just a few more ingredients to this recipe. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the yeast mixture in. Look at that, we're up to 1 cup now. It really is doing what it's supposed to. That's great. Oops. Okay, last ingredient is 3/4 of a cup of warm water, and then we'll go ahead and blend that up. Okay, you can see it's really thin right now, and it's even a little bit lumpy, but we have to add 3 more cups of flour. I'm just going to switch from my paddle hook to my dough hook, and then I think we'll see it form into a dough. I think I'll add 1 cup at a time here and let it mix in a little bit, rather than overwhelming the mixer with all 3 cups at once. My mixer is 15 years old. It was used when I got it, and it works, but sometimes I think it's on its last leg, so I do try to baby it and take care of it a little bit. Our dough is done. It's looking so good. Oh, I thought it might stay on there, but it didn't. That's okay. I'll show you in a second. I'm just going to take the wrapper from my butter, and I'm going to grease the pan. My other bowls, my big bowls, are occupied right now, so I thought, well, this pot will work just fine. Because what we're going to do is put it in here for a couple of hours to rise. So let me show you how our dough turned out. We'll clean this off the best we can. Don't want to waste any. Okay. Whoops. This rubber scraper's seen its last day too, but it comes apart. Okay, so the great thing with the dough hook is you don't have to knead it or anything. That's already done for you. And we're just gonna plop it in this bowl. It's I would say it's soft dough, but firm. It's, you know, it's I don't know how to describe it. It's squishy, but dense. Does that make sense? Anyway, here it is. And so we're gonna watch in a couple hours. This should be nice and puffy, and then we'll shape it into the buns. I always go ahead and cover my dough with saran wrap, and I'm just rubbing that same butter wrapper over it. I don't want it to stick to the dough. Some people use, you know, a damp towel, or if you have those beeswax cloths, that would be really cool. But I just use old saran wrap, greased saran wrap. I try not to use the spray anymore. That's really bad for you. So, all right, let's go put this down in the warm basement. We're super blessed to have a wood stove, so it is so warm and cozy down here. So I'm gonna put my dough right next to it. I forgot to mention the saran wrap is so that it won't dry out. It'll keep the dough nice and moist. But we'll come and check on that in a couple hours. It'll be nice and puffy and ready to work with. Here's my dough after sitting by the fire for a couple of hours. It's definitely doubled in size, and we're ready to shape it into the buns now. All right, so you're just gonna grab some dough and shape it into a ball. I would say, a little bit bigger than a golf ball maybe, but not as big as a tennis ball. And I use these silicone mats on my baking trays. I really like them. I think it just makes things really convenient. You could use parchment paper. You can also grease your cookie sheet. That's what the recipe says for my mother-in-law, to grease your cookie sheet. But I just usually use my mats because they're washable. So I'll just shape these into balls, and then we are going to put them back by the wood stove to rise a second time. That'll make them really light and fluffy. All right, to be perfectly honest, I did not get these baked before the kids got home from school. It's into the evening now, but we'll have them with our supper and they'll still be excited. So you just want to, again, put them in a warm place to rise for a second time and then cover them. Excuse me. And I should have probably done something with this saran wrap because they're sticking a little bit, but just want them to, I wouldn't say mine have quite doubled in size, but just get puffy. And they'll grow a little bit, so you can see, like, these are almost touching. They weren't, they weren't touching when I rolled them out, but they've just gotten real nice and puffy. And then you're gonna bake them in the oven at 375 for 8 minutes, or until they're just barely golden brown. You really don't wanna over bake these. They're really good when they're just done. Okay, I took mine out. You can see they puff up even more in the oven, and they're really not brown on top. Like I said, you don't want them to get too done, but if you look underneath, there's that golden brown, and that's kind of how you know that they are done and ready. So we'll let them cool a little bit. I'm sure the kids are gonna be all about this in a couple of minutes. All right, I'm handing over the first potato bun and the first Christmas jam of the season to the kid who likes it the most. There you go, son.
Looks good.
Enjoy. It's his favorite. He was excited when he came home from school and he smelled all those smells. Thanks so much for watching. If you make the potato buns, I would love to hear how it goes for you, and I'll link the video to the Christmas jam. They go really good together. Have a great day.